What up, IDS Mob? It's your boy, HarryWilmington here, founder of IntrovertDatingSuccess.com, and this is the Introvert Dating Success Show. And in today's show, we're talking about the question, why can't she just forgive and forget? Now, this is especially for you guys who have probably been like me at some point in life where you're in a relationship with a woman and for some reason there's been a broken trust, whether it was something that you did to her or something that suddenly came out of you that was unexpected, or she found out something about you that she didn't know was there in the first place. And regardless of when this happens or how this happens, you as the guy may have been unintentional in whatever the action was. And so you go to your woman, you say, hey, I'm really, really sorry. I didn't mean this thing. Hey, my bad for not telling you this thing or for doing this certain action. Let me make it up to you. And so you may think in that moment that, you say a few apologies and, she talks to you about it. You have several conversations about it. And over a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, she'll be over it. She'll say she's forgiven you and she's not even thinking about it anymore. Until like 2 months later, when you do something else and you're thinking, okay, we're going to now talk about this current thing that I did. And she starts bringing up the old thing that you did initially to break her trust. And you start to get annoyed. Because let's face it, as guys, we tend to get over stuff really quickly. We tend to be a lot easier at being able to not only forgive something, but also just forget about it and move on to the next thing. Because we figure if they've learned their lesson, hey, they said they're not going to do the thing again, so I'll proceed to move on, whatever, okay? And so while we take it that way, a lot of times for women, it goes much deeper, And so I came across this video on TikTok of this guy whereby he perfectly talks about why it can be so hard at times for a person to forget about something, even if they said they have forgiven you, why it can be hard for them to reestablish trust with you and why it can take a lot longer than we would like it to actually reestablish that trust. So I'm going to play this video in bits and parts and stop at certain parts so you guys can get an idea of what I'm talking about, okay? So let's go ahead and play this video.
I've done a lot of videos on cheating. And one of the biggest effects of cheating on a relationship is the destruction of trust. And trust can take years to get over, much to the chagrin of the person who actually did the cheating, because they want you to get over it right now. But that just shows that person has no concept of how hard trust is to get past.
So in this particular example, he's talking about cheating specifically, because that's a really big example that people can understand of like, oh, you as a guy went out and violated your sanctity of marriage or your relationship by hooking up with somebody else, you entering inside of another woman. But obviously there are a plethora of other ways that you could break trust with a woman to where she's suddenly very apprehensive about who you are and how much she can actually reveal to you anymore, given this violation of trust.
But there's an even bigger impact of cheating on a relationship, and it's not so much on the relationship per se, it's on the person who was cheated on. And again, it's not just trust, I've had plenty of clients say over the years, it's bigger than trust. Because it's not just the effect it has on the relationship, it's the effect that it has on me. For so many people, it destroys, as you might easily guess, it destroys how I thought you thought of me.
So what he's saying here is basically this person, because you were treating them with respect and trust and care, their idea of you was that you were a person that they could come to and be secure and reveal things to you that you weren't going to tell anybody else, and that you were a safe haven for them. They could go to you and know that if the world's beating them up, you're the person that's going to protect them and make them safe. So at the point where you violate their trust, now they have to now question everything that they thought about you because you were the person that they trusted with the most stuff. And now they're like, but this person just violated that. So how can I now trust this person to protect me? How can I now trust this person to keep my secrets? How can I now look at this person and want to be with them knowing full well that they could be the ones that bring harm to me?
I thought you really liked me. I thought you saw me as great. And so what it does is it destroys my self-confidence. And especially if you were raised to believe that you're unworthy, or that you're no good, or that you're not good enough, or the real you doesn't matter, or you're too short, too fat, too tall, too skinny, too lazy, too stupid, too whatever. And so I've had this person in my life who, by their simply being in my life married to me, made me feel like I was worthy. And now you've just yanked the carpet out from under that, and now I feel unworthy again.
You see what he's talking about here. He goes into more detail into, like, especially if you're with a woman who had a lot of cataclysmic stuff happen in their past. They had parents that were abusive to them or were not trusting of them, or they had spouses that they couldn't trust. And unfortunately, guys, and I'm just going to be honest, a lot of women experience that. A lot of women experience the pains of having men in their past be neglectful of them, of being untrustworthy, of bringing harm to them. And so when they come to you, even though they're trusting you, subconsciously, they're always having some form of PTSD about every man that I've gotten with has hurt me and has lost my trust. But consciously, she's trying to break through that and trust you. But the downside of that is that because she's had that trauma in the past, if you do anything that could break that trust, even to you, it's just like, you could be thinking to yourself, well, I broke her trust this one time, it was a mistake, and I'll just not do it anymore, and I'll know not to do that because I'm not intentionally trying to hurt her, be that person. But she's looking back at, but other guys that were in my past also said that same thing, and now you're saying it to me. This isn't going to make me feel better because they said the same thing you're saying, and they still continue to hurt me after the initial hurts. So now I'm already on super guard for that. And you just broke that, and now I don't know if I can actually come back from that. And now I'm second guessing myself and my judgment of how good I'm in terms of a guy picker, because I picked you thinking I could trust you, and now you're saying you're doing these things that indicate that I can't. And I don't know if that's going to go away, or if you're going to start acting like I can trust you again and then pull the rug out from under me when I don't recognize it again. I'm going to be hurt even more so the next time.
All those voices that were planted in me as a child, that you're unworthy, that you're no good, that you're not wanted, all those voices come rising back the up again, and it rings in your head, and it destroys anything you've tried to build in your life in terms of confidence and worthiness is now utterly destroyed.
When she feels like she's made a bad pick again in a guy that she can trust, it goes beyond just like the trust thing. It goes into who she is and who she's built herself up to be. And she's feeling as though she built herself up enough as a person to be worthy of respect, to be worthy of trust, to be worthy of having somebody treat her well. And even if you were doing that for a while, if you do something that's like as big as cheating or like a number of other things you could do that could make her think that you're really mistreating her in a bad, negative way, then she has to now question if she got to a good enough status in her life to where she can actually be worthy of somebody coming along and treating her the right way. Because if you were saying that you thought she was worth that, and then you're doing stuff that's mistrusting or abusive or whatever, now she has to second guess, did I do enough as a person to be worthy of that? And why am I still the one that's being shat upon in these various situations, all right?
So when the person who cheated says, oh, you need to get over it, that was months ago, or that was a year ago, it's like, you have no clue the level of damage that was done in the destruction of the trust in the relationship, which is huge.
What he's saying is absolutely correct. And I'll be honest, guys, I think a lot of times the reason that we do that in particular is because we really do want to be our woman's hero. We want to be the hero in her story who's come along to rescue her from all the other guys in her life that were bad to her, that cheated on her, that treated her wrong. We're going to be the good guy. And yet, when we do something to them that hurts them, that breaks them down, on some level, we still want to be the good guy. So now we want to be the guy that goes in and rescues them and their self-esteem from the person that hurt them, which in this case is also us. And so that's why we can get very defensive. We can start saying things like, well, yeah, like you said, well, you need to get over it, or that was like months or weeks ago. And we're not aware of like how deep the trust level is actually going for her. So we're thinking it's been 6 months. Why are you still bringing up this old thing? Why are you still harping on this one time that I hurt you this badly? And like, I've gotten over it. We've talked about it several times. I've said I'm sorry multiple number of times. And the truth is, you don't know how deep this is actually going for her, to what levels it's going to, where it's like, it's not just like she can just pop up and be like, okay, I trust you again, saha. It's like, that takes time. And sometimes the time that it'll take to rebuild that connection with you can be a long time. Think about it like this. Think about if you had like a credit card and you gave it to your woman one day and said, hey, you know what? You can go to the mall and spend whatever you want on this card. And so she goes to the mall one day and spends like, 12 or $30. No big, no harm, no foul. Okay. Get the card back. So then a few weeks later, unbeknownst to you, like you trusted her the first time with the card, she used the card responsibly, it's all good. But then unbeknownst to you one day, you get a bill in the mail and it's for $10,000. And come to find out, this woman went out one day, saw a big old purse that she wanted and a couple of clothes that cost a lot of money and just spent it and figured she'll catch the bill before you get the bill in the mail. But you happen to be home that day and you caught the bill first. How would you feel about her now using your card? Would you be so easily able to give her your credit card to spend? Or would you be like, hey, babe, you know what? I forgive you, but let me go to the store with you when you're buying something. Or before I give you my card, let me just call my company and make sure to put a limit on it so you won't spend it. Like you would feel some kind of way. Now, imagine if she came to you and said, well, I spent that $10,000 like a year ago. You should be able to give me a credit card now and trust me. How quick would you be to trust her? Chances are you'd probably be a little apprehensive. You'd probably need a lot more time before you really felt comfortable. So even if you forgave her about it, the reality is you being able to actually trust her with your card again would not be so easy. So the same is true for women, especially with trust. You got to understand, guys, we're the ones that go inside of them. So they open themselves up to us and we go inside of them. And that's their contract to us, that they trust us enough to let us inside of their world. So they let us inside of their world, and then we do some stuff that's not trusting, and then we wonder why it is that they have a hard time wanting to let us back into that world. And it sucks because I get it. A guy, I get it. You want to be the one that's like, I really don't want to do the thing anymore. I saw how much it hurt you, and I don't want to do that thing anymore, and I really want you to trust me. And she could forgive you. She could say, hey, I understand, and I'll let you back in. It could still be months or sometimes even years before she's able to reestablish that trust, especially depending on how big of a distrustful deed it is that you did in the first place.
It's as big as it gets. But then on the individual themselves, and as a result, their engagement in the relationship, you've destroyed that individual's perception of their own self. So congratulations on that one.
Ouch.
So at what point in your life do you realize the damage, if you're the one who's been cheated on, the damage that has been done to you? And do you really believe you can get over this? And do you really even want to? And if you're the one who did the cheating, at what point do you get out of your own selfishness and realize the true damage you did? Have a kick-ass day.
So those are the questions that come about. So for the person that the wrong thing got done to, they have to ask themselves, realistically, do I want to risk getting this kind of hurt again? And honestly, a lot of times the answer is going to be no, or it's going to be, I really do want to work through it, but it could still be very hard for them and take a long time to reestablish that trust. Now, for you as the person that broke the trust, you have to ask yourself, like, when A, are you going to stop doing the thing? Also, are you going to give that person time to really reestablish their connection with you? And C, is that worth reestablishing in the first place? Because let's be honest, just because you did something wrong, and that you're trying to fix it, that doesn't necessarily mean this is now going to be a situation that's going to realistically work out. For all we know, the kind of trust that you broke could have been so bad that she decides not to, and that's within her right. Or it could have opened up some things that made you realize that maybe you have some work on yourself to do. Or maybe you were treating this person wrong in part because maybe you thought that, maybe you didn't realize that this wasn't the person for you, and you were subconsciously doing stuff to sabotage the relationship, in which case you got to end it because it's not fair to them. So there's a plethora of stuff here, but all this to say that in terms of the women's side of things, the reason they're not always so able to easily forgive and forget is because in order to forget, that means they have to believe that that thing that you did is never going to happen again. And if they've experienced previous guys that said that stuff and they did it, it's going to be very, very hard for them. And that's something that as a guy, you have to understand. And it's especially helpful to understand because that way you won't be doing selfish things in relationships. A lot of times these things that you're doing to women come about because you're being selfish. You're wanting what you want when you want it, regardless of what they want. And that's not how you can operate in a loving, caring, budding relationship. All right. So if your woman is giving you this kind of pushback, or she seems to have forgiven you for something, but she keeps bringing some stuff up, or maybe that just means it hasn't been talked about enough. She hasn't worked through those feelings, and you're going to have to give her time. If you want to be with her and think it could work out, you got to give her time to work through that, to be able to get back to that level where she can trust you. Because even if she forgives you, if she may never forget, she could be at a point where that thing was so cataclysmic. Like I think about like Beyonce and Jay-Z. Like, Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce back in the early 2010s. They had a fight in the elevator about it. She did a whole album about it. Then Jay-Z released a whole album about it. And then, they put an album out together. And that was like a good 5-year span from when the fight happened to when all these albums got released. But even on that last album, they were still together. They're still together now. They're still, they had some extra kids and they're all lovey-dovey. But even on that last album that they did together, they were still alert where she was like, oh, like when you were messing with that so-and-so, it's like, again, 5-6 years later, she forgave him. They're in a better spot, but she still has a few jabs here and there. Like, just remind you, this thing happened, so you won't do it again. And that may happen. You got to decide, can you deal with that? All right. So hopefully this helps you give a better understanding of where women are coming from. For more of these shows, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com. You can also go there, click on the coaching tab for one-on-one coaching. And of course, you want to support the show, go to youtube.com/HarryWilmington and subscribe today. I'm Harry Wilmington. I'll catch you guys in the next show. I'm out. Peace.